Do you want to water your tomato plants in raised beds the best way possible, but you don't know where to start? You came to the right place, because in this video I'll show you what is the best way to water tomatoes in raised beds. And after watching this video, you will know how to water your tomatoes to promote their growth and prevent diseases. You will learn how to water tomatoes correctly so you won't increase the chance of infecting them. I will tell you how much water does a tomato plant need. You will discover how often to water tomatoes to increase their root system. I will tell you when to water tomatoes, and then I'll show you how you can build your very own self-watering clay pot for tomatoes for only 20 bucks. If you like this kind of content and want to watch more of it, please let me know by leaving a like. And if you aren't already subscribed, please do it now so you won't miss any gardening content from me. So without further ado, let's jump into the main content. Did you know that if you water your tomato plants incorrectly, you can increase the chance of them getting infected? Or you can induce many problems, like tomato splitting and blossom end rot. But luckily for you, there is one method you can use to prevent all of the problems, and I will show it to you in this video. Tomatoes, as you know, are juicy fruits, full of water that love to grow in moderate climates, with not that much humidity. In nature, they vine on the ground, rooting wherever the stem is touching the ground, thus increasing their root system. In the end, increasing their water absorption capacities. Our tomato plants, on the other hand, are trellised up on one single stem, having just one root bulb. And if we want to grow big and juicy tomatoes, we need to provide some water during the dry summer season. But there is a catch. If we water them like we water other plants, meaning from the top down, wetting all its leaves, will increase the chance of it getting tomato blight. Because by watering the leaves, we induce local evaporation of the water, thus increasing the humidity of the air surrounding our tomato leaves. This, in combination with the hot summer air, is perfect growing space for molds like tomato blight. Also, after long dry parts of the year, the tomato will suffer from blossom end rot, because the soil would lack the water needed to transport all the heavy calcium to the tomato roots. And on top of that, if you forget to water tomatoes, and you water them abundantly after that, or a big storm passes through your area, the tomatoes, because they will absorb a lot of water fast, they will crack. So how to water tomatoes to prevent all the problems and still have enough water for these juicy tomatoes? The simplest solution that would work is one that I used last season. You can mulch the entire bed where you will grow your tomatoes and prune all the leaves and suckers up to 1 foot high. By doing so, you will be able to water your tomato plants directly at the stem, and you will avoid water splashing from the ground to your leaves, thus reducing the chance of tomato blight even further. But this requires you to go to your garden to water tomato plants every so often, and as I mentioned in the title, I'm here to show you a self-watering system that is cheap and will save you time. Another way how you can water tomato plants is with a drip irrigation system. This is a passive system that will drip water directly to the soil surrounding your tomato plants, again reducing the water splashing to your leaves, but also reducing the time needed for watering plants. But this system is not that cheap, and also is not practical if you have a remote garden with no tap water like mine. So the best way to water tomatoes, in my opinion, is by pressing the like button using a self-watering clay pot that is cheap and simple to make. To make this self-watering system, or also called OLLAS, all you need is, and this is very important, non-glazed clay pots, a lid for the pot that will fit snugly on top, some tile cement, and some old broken tiles. And with these materials, all you need to do is to glue the tile with some tile cement to the bottom to cover the drainage hole. So prepare the tile cement and place the broken tile at the bottom of your ceramic pot so that you cover the drainage hole. Then pour the tile cement in it, give it a little tap to flatten the cement, and leave your pot for 24 hours so the tile cement can harden. You're probably asking yourself, but how the water will drain if you're covering the drainage hole? I call this magic. I mean, it's magical to watch the water coming out of the tiny pores that the clay pot has. You can see here exactly to which height I pour the water inside my pot. The water that passes through the clay pot will eventually migrate to the surrounding soil, making it perfectly moist for the roots. Also, the roots will feel the moisture and they will grow towards the pot, increasing the root system and in the end having even more water for themselves. So to make this system work, all we need to do is to fill the clay pot from time to time and cover it with the lid. The only tip here is to use clean water without any debris that can clog the pores in your clay pots. So with this method, you will water only the bottom layer of the surrounding soil, and with this you will reduce the growth of the weeds in your soil, because the top inch of the soil will remain dry, so the weed seeds won't germinate. And this is another factor why I think this irrigation system is the best way you can water your tomato plants. But how much water does a tomato plant need? Before we learn that, take a moment and please leave a like on this video if you find value in this content, and share it with your friends to let them know about this wonderful watering technique. Because my tomato plants are growing under a roof, all the water they get is from my irrigation system. Thus, I kind of know how much water they need, because heck, they're still growing. I have 1.5 gallon of non-glazed clay pot per 4 tomato plants, and I fill it with water every 2 weeks. For now, my tomatoes didn't show any signs of stress, and the soil surrounding them was still moist, an inch or so under the top layer. Last year, I also had my tomatoes growing under a roof, but because I didn't have this irrigation system, I watered them every 2 weeks with 2 gallons of water. So how much water a tomato will need? It depends on the water system you have. If you are growing your tomatoes without mulch, you will probably need to use even more water to water them. And with this, you will also learn how often to water your tomato plants. I would say that with this self-watering clay pot, you can water them every 2 weeks. You don't need to have your clay pots always full of water. In my experience, they will drain all the water in 1 week, and your tomato plant can grow by itself for another week. This will also encourage your tomato plants to send out more roots in search for the water, thus increasing even more its root system. But if you have mulch, you will need to water them every week. And if you don't have the watering system nor the mulch, you should water every 3 to 4 days, depending on the climate. And the best time to water your tomato plants is exactly when you have time. With this watering system, you can water your tomatoes whenever you have time, or when you see that your pot has been empty for a whole week. So we reduce your time that you are taking care of your plants even further, and you will have more time to enjoy in the garden. But if you don't have the watering system, the best time to water tomato plants would be in the evening. That way, the water will have enough time to be absorbed by the mulch and the soil, and won't evaporate that much. So now that you know what is the best way to water your tomatoes, I invite you to learn all you need to know about pruning the leaves and suckers from your tomato plants. So for those of you who want to learn how do you prune your tomato plants, you can follow the video that pops on the screen. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to hear more gardening tips and tricks from me. Happy gardening!